Alright guys, welcome back to the Frugal Homestead. So today it is that time of the season. Time to get things planted, get all the plants trimmed up, and get ready for the year. Now, we're going to start off this video by showing you how rough planting season had started with us, because when I went over to try and borrow my dad's tractor, it was broken. So we went back a week later, it was still broken. Went back another week later, and it was still broken, but he said, forget it, just take it over there and do it. Now, when I say broken, the carrier bearing, the four-wheel drive was out of it. It made all kinds of really bad sounds as I drove it over here. And it had a really good time trying to back up the hill and get up the hill and then till down the hill. Luckily, a lot of our beds and gardens are no-till, so it was only one big one that was being problematic, but we also broke ground in some new areas. With that said, let us walk you through everything we've got going on this year. Alright, so let's talk about the first plant loss this year. We actually lost this peach tree. Last year, the deer just decimated this tree. I mean, it was absolutely awful. They were breaking limbs left and right. So this guy has died out. Now our other one is going strong. It does need braced up because these windstorms have been battering it. Its root structure is starting to get loose. So that's on the list to do this year. But yes, after years of being abused by the deer, this tree has finally died out.
So as you can see, the raspberry beds are doing great here. This is a new bed that we planted last year. They do still need to be weeded, but coming along really well. Let's walk over here to the blackberries. Oh my gosh, these things are just crazy. I came out and cut these back in March, cut off all of the old stems and stuff like that. And look, they're just going nuts. We're gonna have tons of blackberries this year, I think, which is awesome, my favorite berry. And I love seeing the blooms. All right, around this side of the fence, we have our grapevines. I really cut this grapevine back this year. And as you can see, we're starting to get the grapes on there. I was a little concerned because it didn't bloom for a while, but now it's coming out really good. I think we're gonna get good production out of it. And down here in the bottom, I've put my prize tomato plant, which is doing wonderful. Came out, watered it, put some compost on it yesterday. Looks like it's gonna do great.
Okay guys, so I wanted to bring you over and show the comfrey here. And it's starting to bloom out, which means it definitely needs cut. But with fertilizers this year being so expensive, you can bet we're going to be utilizing this heavily. Now, everything around here is truly organic, which means we don't use pesticides, we don't use chemical fertilizers. So this is an intricate part of our system. And as you saw our berries back there, the reason they're jumping the way they are is because of these guys. Now, when I went to plant this garden, this was on me. Each of us have kind of taken our own area of the garden this year and planted it. So what I've done here is planted one side of each of these garden beds. Now these are all pole beans, and the reason I did it that way is because in about 2 or 3 weeks we'll plant the other side. That way we have a rolling crop. Now as you come forward here through this row, I planted cucumbers, and just because this row gets more light than the rest of them. And then on the other side here, let me get around the corner, we got some little tomato plants buried in. And then starting here, we have cherry tomato plants, more for Olivia just to pick when they come up and eat when she comes to visit. Because you know how granddaughters are. They love to come out to the garden, pick and nibble.
So this is another one of my raspberry areas. And as you can tell, they're not doing, they're doing good, but I definitely need to come out here and clean them up. This bed I didn't get to this year yet, but I'll come out, I'll clean up all these old ones, and they'll still do great. They should start blooming here soon. And this is the behemoth catata plant. I have never seen these plants get this big. we got these from Aunt Carolyn. She actually came over this week and asked how we were getting them to grow so big. But, I mean, they are going to be loaded. So, she got some Comfrey and a couple other things from us. She's going to try and get hers to do just as well. But this thing is massive. Love my catata berries.
So this is one of the new areas we tilled this year. And I really didn't put too much compost or other materials into this one. I'm going to try to probably top coat with a little bit of compost once the plants start to come up. But this is all bush bean. I planted the whole thing with bush bean here, trying to make a bumper crop this year because we are trying to have our pups lose some weight. So we've been supplementing them in with some green beans, as well as trying to build up our stores on the shelves again this year. Usually we can get away with some bush bean crops, but it just depends on what kind of mood the deer are in this year. Now, as you come over to here, this is a new section too. And I ended up planting purple top radishes here. So whether we're trimming and eating the greens off of it, or whether we're actually letting them go to full bloom and then digging them up, that's going to be hopefully a solid crop. Now, honestly, we usually have a lot of problem with deer when we plant radishes and when we plant turnips. It's just something they like to come in and start chomping on. So I'm not putting a lot of stock in these. Alright, so this used to be the fenced in garden area. This ground has been worked in real good with a lot of organic matter. I did do a pass or two right here with the tractor and tiller. So I just planted some more purple tops up there just because turnips, I was trying to box it in between this electric pole and the berry plant, hoping the deer might not find that batch. But then you have all this open ground here I tilled in. And then Missy took the time to lay it out and plant it all. And it had to have been a long day. Luckily, I wasn't there for that one.
Okay, so I planted all of this lower garden the other day. I started out up there at the top. I put some spinach in. I'm not sure if that's going to come up and work or not. I tried to put it kind of underneath the berry plants, just hopefully it'll have a little bit more shade and maybe we'll get something off of it a little bit longer. Then I put some of the short carrots in. There's a couple rows of those there. The next thing I planted was my viney type items. So I did 3 rows of zucchini, 3 different varieties. We always use a lot of zucchini around here in a lot of different ways, so that's always going to have lots of squash and zucchinis. Then I have never had them work out really well, but I planted 1 row of cantaloupe and 1 row of watermelon. So we'll see if we get anything out of those. I hope we do. Even if they're small, I don't care. The next thing I planted was some of the yellow wax beans. I have never tried them, had a couple packs, thought, well, we'll give it a shot this time, see how they do. They are a bush bean, so they're not supposed to get really tall. Figured those would work great there. Then I planted a couple rows of Brussels sprouts. Really hoping these do well because we absolutely love Brussels sprouts. We use them all the time. That would be very good. And then down here on the end, I planted 3 rows of okra. And the reason I planted my okra down here on the end is because those plants get pretty tall. They get up to 3 to 4 foot tall. So I wanted to make sure that they did not shade the rest of the plants in the garden. So we put them all down here at the end. I got a lot into the garden. Hopefully it all works out. Whatever doesn't work out, we'll go back and replant with something different later in the season.
Alright, so never is anything ever perfect. So if you guys notice, this is all long. I've got to go through and mow this down, but here's the telltale sign right there. This used to be our asparagus bed, but unfortunately the grass has overtaken it and basically killed it off. So that's a loss. And then we'll talk about this loss, because these we've been fighting for literally years. These were blueberry plants. And for years we've fought trying to get them to do something, and they just absolutely would not. So we wrote it off and said, we're just gonna plow it over this year. Now, you're not always gonna win when you're dealing with a garden. You just gotta do the best you can. Now I wanted to take a moment to show you the power of compost as a fertilizer, because that was not there 3 weeks ago. But as you can see, the pile all goes down right to this front corner holding this compost. And so much nutrient went down there, that poison ivy just went nuts and went right up that and blew up in the last 3 weeks. That's the power of compost, guys. If you have compost and you have Comfrey, which this I had some Comfrey cut up and put into it and mixed into it, this is the kind of production you're going to get. But we want to take that production and not grow poison ivy. We want to grow in our garden. But I just thought you guys could actually see a real world example of just a plant that is soaking up the nutrients so fast it blows up. So as you can see, we've been hard at work trying to get stuff into the ground. It may not be perfect, and with our time frame and everything we're trying to do with the tiny house, all we can do is get done what we can get done. Now, had the tractor not been broken, we probably would have plowed up a lot more ground and done a lot more, but I wasn't trying to actually rip the bearing out of it. You know, I wanted to have the ability to let Dad get it fixed. That way, you know, we can carry on with other projects throughout the summer. Now we are digging into our finished compost pile there. We are trying to make new runners off of the catata berry plant. We've got pots going in different places for other little things. I know we were talking about maybe doing some ground cherries again this year. So there's a lot of things still to get in the ground. We are rotating crops in and out like I showed you with the beans. We're gonna plant a second picking and a third picking, hopefully, if season holds up. But we've got so many things to do here on the Frugal Homestead. You just gotta prioritize and work day to day and move along. Some are gonna do well, some are gonna fail, and we can just smile and go on with it and try different things to see what works.
Yeah, do something different.
Now, we really appreciate you coming along with us. Every year we get a lot of good feedback from our garden videos and interaction in the comments. So let us know down in the comments what you're gardening up this year, whether you're doing pots on your back porch, whether you got something in your window, whether you got a full-blown garden, or whether you're a full-blown farmer. But with that said, and I don't know why you wouldn't have by now, because every video we tell you, go down, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you see all of our upcoming videos, and that way you can see what happens with our garden. If you get a chance, give us a like. Let us know down in the comments what else you think we should plant this year. And with that said, honey,
we will see you in the next one.
Good. Now you can go plant some more stuff. I'm going to go inside and sit down.
Really?
Not really.